Hello and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren from Lauren and the Book. It's a mid-month wrap-up. I hardly ever do mid-month wrap-ups, but last weekend, God, that feels like a million years ago, I read 24 hours in 48 hours. So, no, not in 48 hours. I read 24 hours in a weekend. So I started this when I finished work on Friday, and I aimed to read 24 hours in the course of that weekend until I went to bed on Sunday. I managed it, but I also managed to read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books in a weekend. So I thought, rather than try and squeeze them all into a wrap up at the end of the month, I'll do a wrap up now. So if you watch that vlog, you'll see that you got some of the ideas and thoughts that I had behind those books then, and if you follow me on Instagram you would have also seen that. But we're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna wrap up the month now. So the first book I read in the month was Stir Fry by Emma Donoghue. I read this because of the Irish readathon that's going on throughout this month, and this prompt, the prompt that went with this book was a book that has LGBTQ plus characters or an author, and this is a coming of age story about a girl called, I've forgotten her name already, Mariah. It says Maria, but it's sounded out Mariah. And her being at university and moving in with a lesbian couple. Now she doesn't know she's moved in with a lesbian couple to start with, and it's sort of her, I guess the only way I can use it is coming to terms with the fact that these two women that she's living with are lesbians. Now, it's set in the 90s, and I definitely think some of the language and the reactions people have to the fact that Mariah's living with this lesbian couple are definitely reflected in the fact that it is set in the 90s. Not much happens. I gave it 3 stars, but I think maybe it's more of a 2.5 star. It's very slow, very quiet, and just sort of like scenes of sort of sitting down eating dinner where not much happens, but I didn't not enjoy it, and I feel like if that's the sort of thing you're into, then you're going to really like this. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars, but I'd probably say it's more of a 2.5, and that was Stir Fry by Emma Donoghue. Next up was an audiobook that I listened to, and that was Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. I loved this. I gave it 4 stars, but honestly, I really thought about it for a long time afterwards, and when I recall it, I have such a sort of like smile on my face and want to talk about it. I think this could eventually go up to a 5 star. So this Such a Fun Age tells the story. You follow 2 main female leads, Amira and Alex. Now, Alex has 2 daughters, and Amira looks after one of those daughters. And Alex is white and extremely privileged. She has a life of a sort of influencer online, and Amira is black and is her babysitter. Now the book starts with Amira being held at a grocery store near to where she's babysitting for Alex, with the little girl, because Amira is black and the girl that she's looking after is white, and they're not quite sure why she's got this girl, why she's in the grocery store at this time with this white girl at this time, etc. So that's the sort of like that's what it opens with, and that sort of sets you to sort of like asking questions already. But the backstory in this and the power play that goes on in this, particularly from Alex's point of view, like she is such a control freak. It was just so thrilling and engaging, and I listened to the audiobook of it, and I never wanted it to end. I was just like, I never wanted to stop listening to it, because there's always something, and it's not like big event after big event, but it really is like you're really engaged with it throughout. And yeah, there's sort of like some coincidences from the past that come to play now, and and history, and like past, like what's happened in their lives before up until now. And yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I feel like if you have a book club coming up, or you want a book to recommend for book club, then I would definitely recommend this book, because there is so much to talk about there. And yeah, I just thought it was great. I really did think it was great. I'm actually thinking of putting it up to a 5 star now, because I just enjoyed it so much. So yeah, and I read that because I thought it was going to be on the Women's Prize long list. I'd put it on my predictions. In fact, I was almost certain it was going to be on there, and it wasn't. So disappointed that it didn't make it there, but really great book. Really enjoyed. The next book I read was Girl by Edna O'Brien. I read this for the Irish Readathon as well, but it's actually also on the Women's Prize long list. I gave this 3 stars, but I do think probably with a bit of distance between it, I'd knock it down to a 2 star. Now, I'm going to sort of quote myself from my from my Instagram review, in that there is nothing comfortable about my reading experience of this book. From the awful things that happen, you follow a girl called Mariam who gets abducted and married into Boko Haram and raped and abused, and there's so much violence and horrificness. She eventually escapes that, and it's sort of like her story of can she ever love again? Can you ever trust again when these horrific things have happened to you? So that is awful to read anyway, some of the things that happen in there. There's no sort of shying away from the horrific things that happen in here. Then it's written in really, really short staccato sentences, probably because it's all so dramatic and like things happen really, really quickly, and in the space of like a double page, like just so many atrocities and horrificness happens. So the reading of it's really like short sentence all the time. And then if you add on to the fact that this is written by a white woman who hasn't experienced these atrocities and this situation. Now it does, from the information at the back, it does sound as though she spent a lot of time researching into this book, but there's still something here, and I don't even know if I can put my finger on it, what it is about it that makes me just feel, ugh, like, is this her story to tell? But yeah, I've knocked it down from a 3-star to a 2-star, but I don't really know who I'd recommend reading this to, because it's just so awful to read. It was just so horrific, and yeah, just horrific. So yeah, probably a 2-star for that. Then the next book I've got is Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. Now I read this in one sitting. I literally sat down and read it in one sitting. It's a really short, less than 200 pages, sort of succinct, very succinct family history book, and you're following, it starts at a coming of age party. Second time I've said coming of age this video, and you are finding out about what's going on with this family now, and then the girl whose coming of age party it is, you look into her mother's history and her father's history and her grandparents' history, and yeah, there's some sort of like tension in the family. The girl whose coming of age party is doesn't really particularly get on with her mother, and you're finding out about how she fell pregnant with her, etc, etc. I just found it really, like, again, I'm going to use the word engaging, but engaging, and like the fact that I was able to, and now it is a short one, so the fact I was able to read it in one evening. I don't remember the last time I read a book in one evening, but yeah, found it very, very interesting, and I reckon this is going to make it to the short list. So currently it's only on the long list, but yeah, I think it's going to make it to the short list. So you heard it here first. Got to take that one back to the library. The next one I read on the Saturday of the reading 24 hours in one weekend, and I sort of neglected. I mean, I had a lovely time reading for 24 hours in one weekend, like really got loads of reading done. I thought it was going to be a complete breeze, particularly because I listened to audiobooks, so I went and did a run and listened to an audiobook, and I was in the shower listening to an audiobook and cooking listening to an audiobook, and I thought, oh, I'll have read 24 hours easily, but I really had to push myself. But also within that, I pretty much ignored David the entire weekend. So on the Saturday we sat down together and read a picture book, and this was again for the Irish Readathon. And the prompt for this was a book under 150 pages. Now I really struggled to find any Irish books under 150 pages, but Oliver Jeffers is a Northern Irish picture book and illustrator, picture book writer and illustrator, and I'd read a few of his before, and I picked this up, which is Here We Are, Notes for Living on Planet Earth. Now I just found this really cute. It's just got some really nice illustrations and some really nice messages. Look at this, like under the sea scene. Very cute. And just like messages with sort of, we're only here for a certain amount of time. This is a really good page as well. We're only here for a certain amount of time, so just make the best of it, basically, and just look after each other. I'm not going to show you all of them because but the colours are just lovely, and it's just very cute. I feel like it's good for all ages. One of the points I liked is that, so one of the pages said, like, you may not even be able to talk yet, and like I feel like it would be good for reading to a baby and also reading to sort of slightly older children, and there's lots to look at, so like lots of different people to look at and things like that. So yeah, very much enjoyed this and thought it was really really sweet. I gave that 4 stars. Then these books, three books, the next 3 books are from the Sunday of my reading bonanza. The first one was Fleishman is in Trouble by Taffy Brodessa Akner. Now this is on the Women's Prize long list. This was like, I was impressed with myself that I managed to read this in a whole weekend. Now I gave this 2.5 stars. I put it on Instagram and I reviewed it as a 2-star, but I feel like it is a 2.5 star. And you're following Toby Fleishman, who is a doctor, and he's seemingly been really fucked over by his wife. His wife's dropped the kids off in his wife and him are separated, and she's dropped the kids off in the middle of the night to his house and just disappeared, and he can't get hold of her on the phone, and nobody in her office seems to know where she is, and he's just having to sort of like make allowances to look after his children, so he's not being able to go into, he's had to take some personal days at work, and he's up for a big promotion and things like that. And it's split into 3 parts. So the first part, you're sort of really building some like, you're feeling like you can't believe how much she's fucked him over, basically. And then as you read on more and you sort of hear more from things that she's potentially done and things that maybe is a reaction to something that Toby's done, you build a bigger picture, and the messages really are things always as they seem. So you've got it from Toby's perspective, and then also an odd perspective of his one of his friends from college or something, and that just sort of didn't really fit very well for me. I don't know, I feel like we needed another perspective in there, but it just seemed like a sort of like bit out of the blue perspective that it was from a friend of his from college. So yeah, but I've got to say, like, the character's quite well fleshed out, and yeah, it was fine for me. I don't regret reading it, because when I saw that this was on the long list, a lot of people I'd seen had sort of given this not very good reviews, but yeah, I don't think it will make the shortlist, but I don't regret reading it. What a review. I don't regret reading it. Then the next one I read, I gave 4 stars. Love this series. This is Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman. Just the cutest thing you've ever seen. If you really want something cute, then please take the time to read Heartstopper Volume 1, 2 and 3. They literally take about, like, I mean, I sat and read them in about half hour, like, each volume. I read the first 2 volumes when I was away with the booktubers last year, when I went away to Suffolk with Mercedes, Jen, Jean and Lauren, and I knew this was coming out, and I got this out from the library. You're following Charlie and Nick, who up until this point, so spoiler alert, they're a couple now. So in the first 2 volumes, they're sort of getting together, but now they're a couple, and they're sort of coming out to their friends as a couple now, and they go away on a school trip to Paris, which is really fun, and the illustrations of that are really cute, and it just sort of reminded me of like being on school trips when I was younger. Potentially not a school trip to Paris. Did I ever go on a school trip to Paris? Maybe I did. Went to Disneyland, I don't know, but yeah, just, and very cute sort of like text interactions between them on the bus and stuff like that, and just really like super cute and just lovely and really enjoyable to read. So would definitely recommend that. And then the last book I finished on that Sunday was an audiobook, Actress by Anne Enright. Now I actually gave this 1 star, and I nearly DNF'd this on a number of occasions, but I didn't have any credits left on Audible, so I was like, no, you must persevere with this. But I actually ended up returning this on Audible because I just didn't enjoy it at all. So this is a book written about the main character's mother and how she was a very famous actress and her life as a famous actress, and the main narrator is talking at you basically about her mother's life and also about her life, and it all sort of seems to mingle in together, and it was really hard to keep engaged with it, because I feel like if because I was listening to it as well, like if my concentration slipped for a minute, I'd miss like masses of it and what was happening, and it just wasn't for me, and I just didn't enjoy it at all. But I have seen some other people who really enjoyed reading it, so I think that maybe this just wasn't for me on audiobook, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. But the last book was definitely for me. I only finished this yesterday on my way home from my holiday. I've been in Centre Parks for the weeks, and it was lovely. And that is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. Now, I knew I was going to love this book. I absolutely knew I was going to love this book, and I kept putting it off. I bought it just after Christmas in early January, and I was like, I'm going to get around to reading that at some point. I'm going to get around to reading it, and now is the time, and I loved it. I mean, I knew I was going to love it, but I absolutely loved it. So it's a series of chapters written about different women, and they're also split into sort of like 3 sections. So chapter 1 is about Amma, Yaz and Dominique. Chapter 2 is about Carol, Bumi and Letitia, and they've all got like links with one another. So where it be like a really obvious link, like one of them is the other one's daughter, or it might be that one person was someone's teacher at school, and I just loved it. It's written in a really unusual, there's no full stops in here, at least I don't think there's any full stops in here, and it's written in quite an unusual way with very sort of leading sentences because there's no short full stops, but quite short sentences as well. So it read really quickly for me, even though I read it over the space of a week. I'd literally just read for like 24 hours at a weekend, so I wanted to take a bit of time with this, and I finished it on my way home yesterday, and I just loved it. It just covers so much of life as a woman, and there was parts, what I really liked is I just felt like there's something for everyone in here, because there's parts of it, so like for instance Dominique's story I followed like avidly, like, oh my god, what is happening here? But then there'll be another story that's really slow and sort of washes over you, and just, yeah, I just loved it. And I really liked the end bit as well, where it was brought together, so all of these characters seemingly have a link to a play that's being put on at the National Theatre about Amazonian women, and one of the last sections of the book is about the after party of that, and you sort of see some of these characters coming together that you've read about and like interacting with one another. I just loved it. I just felt like you really felt like you're in it, and like you're in on a really wonderful thing, and I loved it. It's going to be on the shortlist. I think this could win. I know it won the Booker Prize, or half won the Booker Prize, rolls eyes, but I feel like this could win. Oh, it's just perfection. Loved it. So those are the books that I've read in the first half of the month of March. Let me know what you guys have been reading in the month of March. Have you been reading any of the Women's Prize long list? Have you loved any? Have you got any ones that you think might either make it to the short list or are going to win potentially, if you've got firm thoughts already? And I'll see you all again soon for another picture video. Goodbye.